So picture this. It's 2 a.m. on a rainy night in Miami Beach. The neon lights from the strip are kind of reflecting off the slick pavement, bouncing off the windows of the luxurious National Hotel.
Right, very cinematic.
Yeah, exactly. And up there, inside room 100508, sits a 25-year-old guy. He is completely surrounded by glowing laptop screens. I mean, his eyes are bloodshot. He is running on just a dangerous amount of caffeine. And looking at him, he seems, well, utterly untouchable.
He really was at the top of his game right then.
Oh, absolutely. But he isn't browsing the web or, playing games. He is actively in the middle of pulling off the largest digital heist in American history.
The scale of what he was doing in that room it's still kind of difficult to comprehend, even today. He was in the process of stealing roughly 170 million credit card numbers.
Which is just an insane number.
It really is. And the target of our deep dive today, the man sitting in that hotel room, is Albert Gonzalez.
And looking at the source material we have, it paints a picture of a guy who wasn't just like a prolific hacker. He was living this totally brazen double life. By day, he was a trusted, salaried informant for the United States Secret Service.
Yeah, drawing a government paycheck.
Exactly. But by night, he was robbing the country blind, right under their noses.
Which brings us to the mission for this deep dive. We're going to trace that entire evolution. We'll explore how a teenager in a high school computer lab built a global cyber syndicate, manipulated the highest levels of federal law enforcement,
and ultimately force the entire financial world to just fundamentally alter how it protects you, the listener, every single time you buy something.
Right. We also want to examine the vulnerabilities his story exposes in our own daily digital routines.
So we should probably start by looking at how someone even develops the mindset required to pull something like this off. The profiles we have on him suggest Albert wasn't exactly your typical kid growing up in Florida. Like, he wasn't spending his afternoons out in the sun.
No, not at all. He was born in Miami in June of 1981 to Cuban parents. And his fascination was, from a very early age, entirely directed inward toward machines.
Right.
He got his first personal computer when he was 12. And instead of using it for, homework or whatever, he just vanished into his bedroom. He spent all his time figuring out the architecture of local internet cafe networks and just finding ways to breach them.
Which is pretty advanced for a 12-year-old.
Oh, definitely. And it escalated fast. By the time he was 14, so this is around 1995, he and a group of friends from his high school computer lab managed to breach the internal systems at NASA.
Okay, wait. Breaking into a federal space agency with a 1995 dial-up connection? That is a serious escalation from hacking an internet cafe. The FBI's response to that must have been massive.
Well, yeah, NASA's security protocols immediately flagged the intrusion, and they assumed they were dealing with a highly coordinated attack by some foreign intelligence service.
I mean, of course they would.
Right. So the FBI traced the signal, completely expecting to raid this sophisticated cyber terrorism cell. And instead, they find a teenager at South Miami Senior High School.
The visual of federal agents preparing for a tactical takedown and walking into a room full of teenagers in oversized 90s clothes is just incredible. But the resolution of that raid is what really stands out in the sources. They literally just let him go.
Yeah, they handed him over to his parents with a stern warning. His father even staged a fake arrest with the help of some local police friends, hoping a scared straight tactic would push Albert away from computers.
Okay, let's unpack this. He hacks NASA, gets caught by the actual FBI, and basically walks away. Did that fake arrest tactic backfire, or did it just confirm to him that he was already outsmarting the people in charge?
It totally backfired. It was a profound psychological pivot point for him. This actually introduces a concept we see constantly in the early days of cybercrime, which is asymmetric warfare.
Oh, right, because the authorities were used to physical crimes.
Yeah, exactly. Historically, law enforcement relied on physical leverage, guns, geography, jurisdiction. The FBI they just didn't have a protocol for a 14-year-old who could breach a space agency from a suburban bedroom.
Right.
So when Albert walked away without any tangible legal consequences, he didn't feel fear. He realized that a single individual with a keyboard had more leverage than a federal agency.
He basically found the ceiling of their capabilities and realized he was operating way above it. But, staying a lone wolf only gets you so far. To really scale an operation, you need infrastructure. You need a network.
And Albert recognized that very early on. He moved into Internet Relay Chat, or IRC, specifically hanging out in channels like one called Feed the Goats.
Feed the Goats. Great name.
Right. And in the late 90s and early 2000s, IRC was the Wild West. It allowed him to connect with geographically isolated, highly skilled hackers in places like Russia, Ukraine, and Eastern Europe.
Because those areas had specific conditions, right?
Yeah, those regions were becoming massive cybercrime incubators because they had these exceptional technical education programs, but just devastatingly low economic opportunity.
So he steps into that environment and essentially organizes it. The sources detail how he co-founded a platform called ShadowCrew. And reading about it, it sounds like an early, highly illegal version of Amazon. Just a one-stop marketplace for federal felonies.
It really was, complete with seller ratings and customer service disputes. ShadowCrew grew to over 4,000 members.
Wow.
Operating under aliases like Kumbajani and Segvec, Albert facilitated the sale of stolen credit cards, fake passports, and malicious software. I mean, if a hacker sold a batch of invalid credit cards, buyers could literally leave a one-star review and ruin the seller's reputation on the forum.
Wait, how are they actually moving the money back then? Because this is the early 2000s. This is way before cryptocurrency existed to, hide financial trails.
They relied on early digital currencies like e-gold and web money, which weren't really heavily regulated yet.
Yeah.
ShadowCrew also operated an escrow system.
Oh, smart.
Yeah. Albert and the admins would hold the funds until the buyer confirmed the stolen data actually worked, and then they'd take a percentage of the cut. And for cashing out, they used networks of mules, people who would receive wire transfers via Western Union and take a massive commission just to hand over physical cash.
So Albert basically became the bridge connecting all this foreign technical brilliance to the really lucrative American financial system.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, he is trying to maintain a facade of a normal life. The timeline shows he graduated high school in 2000, moved to New York City, and actually got a legitimate job at a .com startup.
Right, but then the tech bubble burst.
Yeah, and when it bursts, he falls back entirely on ShadowCrew. But the sheer volume of cash they are moving, it requires a lot of moving parts. And in 2003, the physical reality of the crime finally catches up to him.
He was in Manhattan using a forged debit card to withdraw cash from an ATM.
Yeah.
And an undercover NYPD agent just happened to spot him and made an arrest.
Talk about bad luck.
I know. Initially, law enforcement assumed they had just nabbed some low-level street scammer. But when they analyzed his laptop, they slowly realized they had the administrator of the world's largest cybercrime syndicate just sitting in their interrogation room.
So he is facing decades in federal prison. It seems like the inevitable conclusion to the story, right? But he manages to flip the dynamic entirely. He sits down with the Secret Service and offers them a deal.
He offered to become a confidential informant. And to his credit, he actually delivered on that promise. He helped the Secret Service orchestrate Operation Firewall, systematically betraying his own network and handing over dozens of high-ranking ShadowCrew members.
And the government is so impressed with his cooperation that they literally put him on the payroll.
Yeah.
They offer him a fixed salary of $75,000 a year.
Which was a lot of money back then.
Seriously. And suddenly he is tracking other hackers, consulting on active cases, and even standing up in front of federal agents at security seminars, teaching them how to catch people exactly like him.
It really highlights this massive institutional blind spot. The Secret Service in the early 2000s was fundamentally outmatched by the digital revolution. I mean, they were analog investigators. They were experts in counterfeit physical currency and physical protection.
Right. Protecting the present.
Exactly. And now they're trying to police this completely borderless digital frontier. They desperately needed Albert's fluency.
But bringing him inside seems, incredibly naive. Here's where it gets really interesting, but also baffling. How did the U.S. Secret Service let the fox guard the henhouse? Were they really just that desperate for help, or did they not realize they were handing the blueprints of their investigative apparatus to a master criminal?
Desperation definitely breeds poor risk assessment. The agency genuinely believed they had him under control. But Albert was playing a deeply cynical double game. Right. While drawing his government salary, he was studying their software, learning exactly how they traced IP addresses, and identifying all the gaps in their surveillance. He basically received a taxpayer-funded masterclass in federal law enforcement tactics.
That is wild. The government even relocates him back to Miami in 2004 because they are worried about retaliation from the ShadowCrew members he hasn't put in prison yet. So now he is sitting down in Florida, armed with this deep understanding of how the authorities track hackers, right at the exact moment the corporate world is making this massive, frankly reckless digital transition.
Yes. Major retailers, grocery chains, restaurants, they were all rushing to adopt Wi-Fi networks. They wanted the convenience of wireless inventory tracking and faster transaction
Oh,
processing.
it makes business sense.
But they were utilizing early security protocols, specifically one called WEP, which stands for Wired Equivalent Privacy, with virtually no understanding of its vulnerabilities.
The source material focuses heavily on this WEP encryption. Why was it such an open door for someone like Albert?
WEP relied on a static encryption key. Without getting too deep into the mathematics of it, the protocol had a fundamental flaw. If you capture enough data packets floating through the air, the underlying math eventually just reveals the password.
Wait, so it's not even guessing the password?
No, not at all. It wasn't a matter of guessing, it was just a matter of collecting enough wireless traffic until the key essentially exposed itself. Anyone with a laptop and a decent antenna could break it.
Which sets the stage for his masterpiece operation. He literally calls it get rich or die trying. And the numbers we are looking at are staggering. We are talking about 130 million credit cards stolen from Heartland Payment Systems alone. 45.6 million cards from retailers like TJX. Millions more from Dave & Buster's, Barnes & Noble, 7-Eleven, Office Max.
This is a really crucial moment for you, the listener, to understand. This was the exact period when your everyday, mundane errands, like picking up a coffee, buying a book, paying for groceries, became a global security risk. The foundational infrastructure of daily commerce was completely compromised.
Let's break down how they actually executed this heist. Because it wasn't just a smash and grab operation. They started with this technique called war driving.
Yeah, war driving is a fascinatingly physical technique for a cybercrime. Albert and his crew would rent a car, equip it with a laptop and a high-powered directional radio antenna, and literally just drive down the highway or sit in a retail parking lot.
Just sitting outside of Marshall's or something.
Exactly. They would scan the building for that weak WEP Wi-Fi signal we talked about.
Yeah.
And from the front seat of a car, hidden behind tinted windows, they could crack the store's network password in a matter of minutes.
Getting onto the Wi-Fi doesn't immediately give you the credit cards, though, right? I mean, they still had to get past the internal barriers to reach the actual payment servers.
Right, and that required SQL injection. Once they were on the local Wi-Fi, they would locate the internal databases. Instead of trying to crack an administrator's password, they would input malicious code into an ordinary search box or login field.
Just typing code into the username box?
Yeah. Because the corporate servers were so poorly configured, they would read that code not as a search query, but as an administrative command. The server would just execute the code and hand over control.
And once they had that control, they deployed a tool created by a former software engineer on Albert's team, this guy named Stephen Watt. It was a piece of custom malware specifically designed for packet sniffing.
This is where the technical sophistication really peaks. They weren't hunting around for old, archived databases of credit cards to download. This malware just sat silently inside the payment processing server. The exact millisecond a customer swiped their card at the cash register, the packet sniffer intercepted the data stream.
So before it even reaches the bank.
Yes, before the transaction even reached the bank for approval, the malware copied the card number, the expiration date, and the customer's name.
It functions exactly like a digital wiretap. I mean, they aren't breaking into a vault to steal the gold. They are intercepting the armored car while it's driving down the highway. And the retailers had absolutely no idea they were being robbed because the transactions still went through to the bank normally. The customer got their receipt, the store got their money, and Albert got the data.
And that data was immediately routed overseas. Albert's automated system shipped the stolen credit card information to what are called bulletproof servers, located in countries like Estonia, Ukraine, and the Netherlands.
For those who don't know, explain the concept of a bulletproof server real quick.
Sure. A bulletproof server is a hosting service that guarantees total anonymity and absolute non-cooperation with international law enforcement. These providers are often located in jurisdictions that don't have extradition treaties or data sharing agreements with the United States.
So they just ignore the cops.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if the Secret Service traced the stolen data to a server in Ukraine, the local authorities would simply ignore the request to seize it.
Man. So with this massive automated pipeline running, the money just starts flooding in. And Albert's lifestyle completely spirals. He is theoretically this low-key government asset, but he is driving luxury sports cars around Miami. He throws a $75,000 birthday party at a New York City penthouse. The sources even mention a weekend-long hotel party he hosted in Miami featuring magic milkshakes that were laced with LSD. He is living with zero regard for the consequences.
That extravagant lifestyle points to the central friction of his entire enterprise. He had engineered a flawless, automated digital machine to harvest data. But a database of stolen credit card numbers holds absolutely no intrinsic value until it is sold.
You actually have to find a buyer.
Exactly. To monetize the theft, he had to rely on vulnerable, unpredictable human beings.
The fatal flaw. The larger the machine gets, the more analog the problems become. So it's 2008, and the paranoia is really setting in. Albert is in Miami, and he notices a sports car tailing him. Given his government training, he recognizes the surveillance tactics immediately. He knows the Secret Service is finally watching him.
And the breakthrough for law enforcement didn't originate from penetrating Albert's technical defenses. It came from a fracture in his international human network.
Right, his primary partner in Ukraine, a man named Maxim Yastremsky, gets arrested at a nightclub in Turkey. And the authorities seize Maxim's laptop.
That laptop was the fatal blow. It contained direct, unencrypted chat logs that linked the entire global operation straight back to Albert Gonzalez. The digital anonymity he relied on just evaporated the moment his partner failed to secure his own hard drive.
Realizing the walls are closing in, Albert is finally arrested in that ultra-luxury Miami hotel room we talked about at the very beginning. They storm in, they find him with a pistol, multiple laptops, and $22,000 in cash just lying around.
A very dramatic end.
Very. And he eventually cracks during interrogation and confesses to something that feels, I don't know, incredibly archaic for a cybercriminal. He tells the feds he has $1.65 million in cash buried inside a physical plastic barrel in his parents' suburban backyard.
The imagery of a mastermind who compromised global digital infrastructure, resorting to burying plastic barrels of cash in the dirt, it perfectly encapsulates the paradox of cybercrime. The digital theft is so elegant, but the physical laundering of the proceeds is just messy and archaic.
Right. And the story takes one final, unbelievable turn when it reaches the courtroom. So Albert is standing before a federal judge, and he decides his only play left is to just throw his closest teammate under the bus. He points the finger at a co-conspirator named Patrick Toey, claiming Patrick was the real architect of the hacks, and Albert was just following his lead.
Which prompts the prosecution to reveal a devastating piece of information.
Oh, this is the best part. So what does this all mean? The prosecutors informed the court that Patrick Toey had already been working as a secret informant for the government for months. Albert, the guy who built his empire by exploiting his status as a double agent, gets taken down because he failed to realize his best friend was doing the exact same thing to him.
It's pure irony.
Exactly. Patrick secures a 5-year sentence, leaving Albert holding the bag for the entire operation.
It reveals the ultimate reality of the cyber underworld, absolute paranoia. There is no honor among thieves when every participant possesses the technological leverage to destroy everyone else. When relationships are entirely transactional, the network will inevitably collapse under the weight of self-preservation.
Cornered and completely outmaneuvered, Albert pleads guilty. And during the sentencing phase, his defense team brings in psychologists who diagnose him with severe internet addiction.
Which was quite novel at the time.
Yeah, it sounds like an unusual defense strategy, but the court actually accepts that his compulsion to be tethered to a screen fundamentally altered his behavior and impulse control. That medical diagnosis literally spares him from receiving a life sentence. In 2010, he is sentenced to 20 years and 1 day in federal prison.
And he was ultimately released in 2023 for good behavior, though he remains under some very severe restrictions regarding his access to technology today.
Looking back at the sheer trajectory of the source material we covered today, we followed a 14-year-old kid dialing into NASA who manipulated the federal government, built an international syndicate, and buried millions in a backyard barrel while intercepting the financial data of half the country.
The legacy of Albert Gonzalez is permanently woven into the fabric of modern commerce. Every time you, the listener, use a chip reader at a grocery store or tap your smartphone to pay for a coffee, you are interacting with security protocols that exist largely because of the damage he caused.
He forced them to wake up.
He really did. He was the catalyst that forced the global financial system to recognize that prioritizing transaction speed over encryption is a catastrophic vulnerability.
He forced them to build stronger vaults, basically. But here's the final thought I want to leave you with as we wrap up this deep dive. The courts agreed that Albert Gonzalez suffered from an internet addiction so severe it actually mitigated a life sentence, right? That the screens had essentially rewired his brain and his boundaries. Well, look around at our world today. We are all permanently tethered to our smartphones. We rely on total digital convenience for our banking, our communication, our entire lives. If we are that dependent on the machine, are we actually the masters of our technology, or are we just leaving our front doors wide open, waiting